Alright, hello, welcome to part 3. We stopped here, and let's do this.
Despite Luca's bitterness, Gran was right. He needed to hash things out with Rollo. A big fight changes the nature of a friendship. Whether, in the end, it is for the better or for the worse, all comes down to understanding. If one is not careful, the same familiarity that builds the strongest of bonds can become the wrecking ball that shatters them. Luca emerged from seclusion, taking in the crisp festival air, but the events of the day weren't on his mind. He had to find Rollo.
I just want to check this first. And there's nothing. Okay.
Roxy rolled her eyes, shaking her head. Luca looked down and kicked at the...
Come on.
Mr. Kerr pointed to his grinning mouth. Jeff was staring into the distance with a wistful look. Jeff turned to Luca with a fur, then gave an understanding. For a moment, the two now shared that same... Sorry, all became flat.
Alright.
Kato's eyes lit with excitement. Kato straightened up and cleared his throat as if... Kato stared at Luca. Luca grabbed The Adventures of Hank. Luca grabbed The Adventures of... Kato removed his book from the desk and replaced it with Luca's, turning on the light. As he slid the book under the purple light to The Adventures of Hank Atomic, Issue 5. Luca clicked his tongue with recognition. Kato began flipping through the pages, stopping when he hit a glowing word. He continued flipping. Reaching the end of the book, Kato looked up. Before Luca could finish his sentence, Luca shrugged, taking a size. Luca tongued at his chin. He reached into his mouth. He shook off the bits of corn dog to read the slip. Luca finished off the remainder of the corn dog. Lumi waved his hands around sarcastically as he began. Rollo sheepishly had... Luca threw himself at Rollo, hugging him as tightly as he could. Luca stuck a toy stretchy hand. Those things always get dirty. Luca wrapped some tape around the hook. Hey, you never know. Luca placed a sinker on the... Sometimes the best stuff is at the bottom. Luca wrapped a twig of thyme around the hook. Some fish have refined taste. Rollo handed Luca an unopened... Luca, some things are going... If I am honest, I hardly understand. But whatever happens, I need you to know that I love you. None of this is fair to you. You have already lost, so we both have. I wish there was a simpler way forward. But if there is, God knows I've tried everything I've done. I hope someday you can accept love, Gran. Luca folded the paper into his pocket and... Luca was at a loss for words, but that was fine. Words aren't always necessary. Sadly, this was... A distant rumble shook the treehouse. It was not fireworks. It was something the boys couldn't possibly comprehend. Something as old and cruel as time itself. A shockwave of cold tore through the room. A bitter, unfathomable chill. Before they could react, it encased them in ice. Two boys, reunited by friendship, only to be cruelly separated by a malevolence beyond reason. And so, our story ends on this melancholy scene, in a silent treehouse turned statuary. In a town brought low by its secrets, sits a pair of friends, alone, together, for the rest of time. The end. No, that can't be the ending. It simply can't. I won't accept it, and I hope you won't either. There are more endings, more possibilities. I can feel it. We are just going to have to sort through them all until we find the one that fits. They'd run the classic good cop, hard cop interrogation. Rollo brandished a steely gaze. I've got this. Read about it 100 times. Rollo swaggered past the without even looking at his... Mr. Tolliver. Rollo spun around. He'd clearly Beck and Luca gave Rollo slam. He grabbed the table. Mr. Tolliver groaned. He recoiled with a... The chair wobbled as he attempted to straighten. Mr. Tolliver could only make out with a gruff tone. The doubtful expression on Beck and Luca's faces transformed into awe. Rollo, hitting his stride, was now channeling. He slammed the table again. Mr. Tolliver's voice, he was nearly... Mr. Tolliver was in a daze. He shook his head, feeling his voice faded to a... With that, Mr. Tolliver... Rollo swung around with a... Chapter 8. 6 feet under, 3 towns over. The kids spent the rest of the afternoon combing through dusty piles of old county records, desperately searching for anything that could help them make sense of Mr. Tolliver's cryptic utterance. Luca tried to shake the thought of Gran's basement, but his focus wavered. Explosives, messages hidden in jam, dossiers on various town figures, and Gran was the only family he had left. He still couldn't bring himself to believe the worst. But the old map with the symbol of explosives in town square made that difficult. As the sun began to set, the kids were no closer to the truth. Rollo shut his book with an assertive nod. Rollo muttered under his breath. Beck slammed her finger down on the open... Something tickled the back of Luca's... The question hung. Beck rubbed her eyes. Luca's heart was pounding if he was lucky. Great. And of course, there was Mr. Tom. Dealing with him would be that Luca shook out his arm. He held perfectly. She was asleep. His only hope. Mr. Tolliver was nowhere. Or maybe Gran knew Lucas hungry, not realizing it. Luca rushed over to the... He flipped the lid to read the label.
Where the fuck she go?
As Luca climbed with each consecutive... His stride began. He tried to grab for the... Something was wrong. A wound, an and his limbs might have through numb lip.
Yeah, boom.
Chapter a speech to Luca awoke to find he moaned into his, or rather, shaking the questions. Augustus Valentine nervously wiped his brow.
Okay, hold on. If, as we saw in the previous thing, um, the goat kid, slept for an entire day because he was upset with Ollie or whatever the fucking tiger is. In this timeline, did he sleep the full day again because he got drugged? Or was the timeline moved up, or what?
Gus cleared his throat and awkward. William Kerr bounded on the stage with. He gave Gus a hearty slap. Mr. Kerr pulled a thick stack of note cards out from his vest.
Oh dear God.
Mr. Kerr took a moment to survey them. He wiped away. He thumped the podium to emphasize. Mr. Kerr nodded confidently. The crowd was silent. Mr. Kerr methodically made. His voice began to build. The crowd began to look around nervously. Mr. Kerr quickly flicked through his note cards. He raised his hands up to the heavens.
And boom.
At that moment, a merciless wall of impossibly cold air ripped through the crowd, instantly freezing everyone and everything it touched. For a man like William Kerr, this was a fitting way for things to end. On a stage, with an entire town frozen in rapt attention for the... There's that ice again! Whenever I think we're getting close, it comes along and ruins everything! Maybe we should just quit? Maybe you should just close the book, walk away, and never think of me again. No, I don't mean that. We got a little closer this time. We just need to try again. Please. They'd run the classic good cop, sly cop interrogation. Luca and Rollo ducked behind with a few crisps. Mr. Tolliver looked down. Beck caught herself before letting the surprise. She'd already gotten him to this was going to be easy. Mr. Tolliver wriggled a bit in his. Beck quickly removed the. Mr. Tolliver rubbed the. Beck twirled her hand. Beck shook her head and clicked. Mr. Tolliver let out an amused. Beck was on a roll now. Heading for the stairs, she grinned, and with a shrug, he continued to. Beck blinked. She turned to the table and Beck marked each scrap of paper and Luca and Beck looked at Rollo with amazement.
Ah!
Gus looked around nervously. Harris's cry hung. Solomon stood proudly at the entrance holding a brown bag over. Solomon shoveled a surprising amount. Beck cupped her hand. Beck flung open the door, and they all squeezed in. Luca cracked his knuckles. The inside of the phone booth, without even the space to panic. Suddenly, the chaotic... It was unclear what they... The air was stagnant. Rollo's hands hovered. Joseph waited. He gestured toward the street. Nuncreed let out a growl. He shook his head with... Nuncreed took a minute. Luca began to laugh. The color drained. Nuncreed grabbed Luca. A jolt of realization. Chapter 8. The Cold, Hard Truth. Beck leapt up, allowing the suction to yank. Dimness eclipsed around her like the her only points of reference were glints of upcoming turns. She heard the tinny, distant... Once she stopped fighting. Then, all of a sudden, as if minutes had passed in an instant, light blazed into view. A burst of wintry air snapped across her face. they rounded the corner to the frozen town square, they spot he held his arms out gingerly. Upon closing the distance, Gran stood nearby. A wheelbarrow had been... She held a lit torch, which flicked. Mr. Nuncreed turned back. Rollo and Beck held steadfast. Luca approached closer. Mr. Nuncreed spun back to... Mr. Nuncreed winced, his voice hardened. They both now yelled, making their peace with long held. The wind howled within. They menaced at each other, both catching their breath. The moment balanced. Amid a blur of it, the wind calmed. And in the stillness, he began to weep. It was all just too much. Falling to his knees, Luca whimpered. The tears crystallized as... Gran stared at Luca. She stiffened up, ignoring his final plea. She smiled, and the torch echoed as it ricocheted. Before Gran... Gran only had her attempt to shield him. Unflinching love, there was no her warm embrace. That is where they remain. And so, in a town brought low by its secrets, sits the frozen... The end. Well, on the bright side, now, we just need... Luca drew himself up and decided to take the only option they had left. Flight. He squinted down the barrel of the mission control defense cannon, aiming it through an opening in the dense tree branches. He looked up with surprise. Luca and Iggy winced as they sprinted through the branches clawed at them, reluctant to give passage. After what felt like a marathon, Luca stopped in his that was all he was able to say. The boys tumbled down. In fact, it was ice. Chapter 5. Signs. They stood silently, catching the sky was like sapphire. With each breath, a plume of steam escaped from Luca's lungs. Let's keep moving. Luca pulled Iggy to his feet as they gazed across a snowy terrain. in disbelief at the sign that now clearly read, "Welcome to Beacon Pines." Looking down at the frozen stream, Luca could faintly see a school of minnows encased in the ice. Luca had almost forgotten the walkie-talkie he was carrying. Luca looked at Iggy with a resigned sigh. Luca responded. Luca winced, shoving the walkie-talkie back into his... The crunching of footsteps. He looked back to see Iggy's face. Luca peered upward. He let out a long, faintly. Seeing Iggy in such a pathetic state gave... Luca allowed himself. The boys huddled together, if not for exhaustion. As it was, all... Iggy motioned sarcastically to his... Iggy shrugged. Iggy now wept open. He wiped his nose with a sleeve. Luca gave a warm chuckle. Iggy cleared his throat as he wiped. Iggy arched into a wide yawn. Luca's eyelids began to... That's all Luca could with. Iggy snuggled. The house smelled of warm. Luca was playing with toy blocks on the living room rug. He looked up to see his parents on the couch. His mother held his father's head in her lap. She idly stroked his hair while humming. A voice behind Luca spoke. Luca turned to see his own face. The doppelganger from his dreams, still clad in a yellow hazmat suit. Aww. Look at this perfectly cozy scene. You know, it wasn't really like this. The figure picked up a toy block and inspected it. It's amazing the facades that one can build given the right materials. Not that I blame us. These are a child's memories, all warm and fuzzy. You don't remember, do you? Luca snatched the block from the figure's yellow-gloved hand. Remember what? The doppelganger pointed to the couch. The last day we saw him alive. The day he chose to abandon us. Luca turned to look at his father, still lounging on the couch. That's not true. He didn't abandon us. The doppelganger waved his hand dismissively. Everything is true here. It's just a matter of what we choose to see. Well, let me show you. The world flickered and pulsed. Luca was sitting next to his bed, listening to his heartbeat with one of his dad's stethoscopes. The doppelganger limped into the room. No, we both know that's not how this went. He grabbed Luca's hand and guided the stethoscope to the floor. Luca heard muffled shouting, brought close by the stethoscope. It was his parents, fighting. Do you remember what we did next? Luca gave a slow nod and crept down the hall to peek through the banister. He could see the outline of his mother at the bottom of the stairs. Damn it, Walt. We can't afford to get involved in this. She was scared. His father stepped forward. What am I supposed to do? Just watch? There's a sickness in this town, and we both know who's behind it. I swore an oath that I won't turn my back on them. Luca's mother grabbed Walt. She was crying, pleading. Walt calmly removed Eleanor's hand from what's right is right, and what's wrong. I could never live with myself if I let Sharper get away with this. Eleanor raised her voice. Spare me your bullshit platitudes. What about our son? Luca flinched, dropping the stethoscope down the stairs. Walt turned with a panicked smile. Luca, is that you, buddy? With tears in his eyes, Luca descended the stairs. Mom? Walt dropped to a knee to meet Luke. Nothing, buckaroo. Your mom and I just... Luca placed the stethoscope against his father's chest. It sounded like you were going somewhere. Walt gently removed the device from Luca's ears. Listen to me, Luca. I have some business to take care of. I'll be back in time to tuck you in. Luca hugged his father tightly. Promise? Walt stood up and walked to the door. He went, I promise. With a wink and a grin, he put on his hat and strode out into the evening sun. A figure approached soundlessly from the foggy snowfall. It stood above them, lingering in contemplation. Slowly raising one hand above Iggy, it snapped out 2 brisk raps on his head. From a deep slumber, Iggy sprang up defensively. Whether it was the calming presence or the recognition that he was not in danger, Iggy felt his clenched fists lower. Luca looked up, gradually remembering his whereabouts. The figure exhaled a cloud of warm vapor. When it came to complete strangers, Iggy had trouble cobbling together an insult. Iggy huffed with gratification. Nat began to turn away. Iggy turned sharply and realizing he'd worn their patience then. Luca and Iggy turned. Nat took a deep breath. Nat exhaled. For a brief, Luca and until they cold. Luca and and Iggy looked around. Nat narrowed his eyes, furrowed his brow, and uttered. Luca began to laugh uncomfortably. He looked down at his feet. His eyes darted back and forth in contemplation. With a sudden pain, a thought struck him. He sprinted off into the pale distance. As Iggy turned to follow, Nat called out. Chapter 6. The Source. Nat expressed his sympathy with a shrug and sauntered off as unassumingly as he'd arrived. He'd given Luca and Iggy what they needed, and nothing more. As Luca sprinted across the snow, the events of the past few days became clearer, pieces to a larger puzzle. Rollo said he was underground somewhere, captured. Mr. Kerr tried to cover it up with lies. The clipboards were hell-bent on capturing Iggy. It all seemed to point to perennial harvest. But right now, there was one thing that Luca needed to know. Luca stopped dead in his tracks. The tree was gone, uprooted and moved, leaving a raw gash in the earth. He dropped to his knees and dug wildly. His numb hands hit something hard. A dry whisper escaped. There was no reply, just snow-covered silence. Iggy finally noticed the tear. Suddenly, they heard the He bent down to scoop up a snowball and lobbed it playfully. Luca stuttered through heaving sobs. Iggy gave Luca a solid smack. Luca wiped his eyes with a sleeve. Iggy flashed a mischievous smile and cracked his knuckles. Iggy and Luca shared a Iggy darted behind a log. He emerged, holding a shoe. Luca rolled his eyes. Iggy stifled a chuckle. Iggy triumphantly raised the shoebox. Luca and Iggy inched up to the edge of the hole, with Arctic air breathed out of the cavern and heat. Mr. Kerr gazed down. Kerr scratched the back. His face contorted. Kerr snapped. Iggy turned to Luca with a... Iggy waved the box. Iggy plucked a single bottle rocket. After a long pause, Mr. Kerr sighed with a nonchalant... With a growl, Iggy tried to twist away. Luca dove forward. His grip was made for he could see Kerr further. Mr. Kerr gasped. With a wild look in his eye, Luca's hand began to cramp. Luca felt Iggy. Every muscle. Luca felt his hand slip. A calm settled. Iggy's voice was cold. Luca had no choice but to refuse Iggy's request. He tightened his grip. A wild, that's a Iggy, we... It wasn't long before they were... Mr. Kerr. A clipboard dutifully produced in ornate... Ah, that's better. I'll put in a good word. A swarm of hands. Yeah. Luca had no choice but to accept Iggy's request. With a quiet blink, Luca watched a teardrop sail down into the howling void. As his fingers slowly gave up, he met eyes with... The two silhouettes were swallowed by... have some idea what that would look like. A fierce twinkle flashed. With a chuckle, Nat dumbfounded. Muko, every step taking him further. To be continued. Beacon Pines. Revenge served. Second. Wait, that's it? I was even starting to. No way. I refuse to be associated with some never-ending parade of sequel. Let's go back and find.
All right, that will be the end of this episode. We are at a minute and two, no, well, an hour and 2 minutes. My longest video so far, but I couldn't find a proper time to end it off. So, we are ending here. I will see you in the next episode.